Hi, so I've got a question for some of you this afternoon, and that's whether you're scared of vampires. Yes, I asked that question. Are you scared of vampires? So I'm not necessarily talking about the vampires that we used to see in the old Hammer House of Horror films or the vampires that we see in the movies. These vampires, I'm just waving at somebody here. These vampires are a lot more dangerous because actually these vampires exist in everyday life. And the thing is that they don't walk around with cloaks and fangs and sticky up hair, all that usual vampire paraphernalia. They're a lot more difficult to spot. So today I'm just in this short video going to cover how you can deal with what I call energy vampires. And you may have heard of that term before. And as I say, sometimes these people are quite difficult to spot. But you know that you've been sucked in by an energy vampire because basically after dealing with them you feel disenergized, you feel fed up, you feel irritated. They're people that I don't know, they just seem to suck the life out of you. So I'm Sarah, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's those good old energy vampires that are walking larger than life, not just at night, but at work, at home, everywhere you can think of. These energy vampires are around. Okay, so what are energy vampires? We're going to cover that. How to deal with them, and things that you can do for yourself to reflect and make yourself less prone to energy vampires. So thank you to everyone that's joined so far. Good afternoon. So let's get going. Energy vampires tend to be people that on the outside can seem very charming, very intelligent. They are very outgoing, perhaps, and you may notice that they're the sort of people that flatter you a lot and kind of draw you in over time, whether that's at work, as a friend, or in any other context, a partner, for example. But they can be very engaging people. You notice them and you can't help but be attracted by those people. But actually, underneath all of that, they're very often emotionally immature people. They are people whose world revolves around them and them only. And they are people who very often lack any kind of like empathy or understanding for other people. So whilst, as I said, on the outside, they appear very charming, very bright, almost like, you know, when you see people and you think, oh, I wouldn't mind a piece of that in a way, piece of what they've got, very charming, very outgoing. Actually, on the inside, they are people that can actually lack empathy, lack compassion for others, and they really do think that the world revolves around them. And part of the art of their charm is to draw you in and either get you to do things that are against your own moral compass or are things that you don't really want to get involved in. So they sort of draw you in over time. But what you may find is that whilst they draw you in to start with, after a while, these might be people that, I don't know if any of you like watching have ever experienced this. You know, sometimes you have people in life that when you spend time with them, you're absolutely shattered. It literally feels like you've been attacked by a vampire, as in the blood has been sucked out of your veins, like the life has been sucked out of you. You could be bored, you could be irritated, you could be resentful, you're exhausted after dealing with them. They sort of deprive you of some of your natural energy. Well, that is a clear sign, not the 2 bite marks on the neck, but those kind of energetic signs are clear signs that you've been affected by what I call that energy vampire. And as I say, they're very, very difficult to spot because they're very, very clever at bringing people in with flattery. So, for example, it might be a friend who thinks you're the bee's knees, but draws you in over time with that flattery and making you feel good about yourself, only then to sort of start taking bit by bit. I'm just going to wave to a few people on the video. Sorry, couldn't help doing that. So they will draw you in over time, whilst, you know, and over time that sort of charm is replaced by you feeling irritated, confused, a bit annoyed, tired, because it's like, oh, I feel like I'm giving a lot to this person. So difficult to spot. Bangs, they don't just appear after midnight or anything like that. They are walking about, you know, our daily lives, in work, at home, etc. Difficult to spot. Apparently charming on the outside and somebody you might aspire to be like or have some of their qualities, but over time will start to take. Effectively what they're doing is grooming you. So that sounds like a pretty dramatic word, but very often these people will, and I don't know whether any of you have experienced this, where you've had a friend or a colleague that you just feel like, oh my goodness, they're amazing, and you're really flattered by the attention, they're really bigging you up, and but then you sort of become drained over time. You become drained over time and realise, actually, I'm giving a lot to this relationship. Because they're very clever over time, drawing you in. And as I mentioned, emotionally kind of immature people, they're sometimes people who thinks the whole world revolves around them, and that, you know, nothing that they do is wrong. They're perfectly entitled to get people to do things that they wouldn't usually do. So what do you do if you come across an energy vampire? Because, you know, they're difficult to spot. It's a very clever play of like building you up and then slowly grooming you to take more and more of your time, your energy and your attention. So what do you do? Okay, well, there are a few. I'll summarise at the end everything we've talked about today. But anyway, having a good, for whatever issue you've got going on in your life or anything that you're considering at the moment, always having a good route for self-reflection is key. So I talk about this a lot in other videos, but being able to practice meditation, mindfulness, whether it's walking your dog, whether it's yoga, whether it's playing football, whether it's exercising, whether it's speaking to your partner or speaking to a trusted friend, you know, just make sure you've got really healthy outlets to be able to reflect. You know, there's times when, you know, it might be like daydreaming, watching a box set, reading a book and just shutting it for a bit and thinking, or keeping a journal. But you know, those times in your life where you're able to really self-reflect and think about what's going on. So use that, make sure you've got time in your life to really reflect on anything that's going on for you. And one of the big things around sort of attracting energy vampires and being prey to them is when we've got, and a lot of us have it, some more than others, and sometimes, you know, these, oh, hello, I'm just going to wave to Angie. Hello. So sometimes we can make ourselves prey to certain people, and sometimes that's because our inner voice is a harsh critic. So that inner voice, what I mean by that is that sometimes we have that voice inside our head telling us, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, and it's a bit of a nagging voice. And that voice can be very, very harsh. And sometimes I say to my coaching clients, do you know what, if this was your best friend, would you talk to your best friend in the same way? Hello, just waving at people joining. Hello Doreen, hello Angie, hello Ashley, hello Danny, hello Darren. I'm talking about energy vampires, and they're difficult to spot because they don't have fangs. But anyway, so if you've got harsh inner voice that's criticizing you, and it's not helping you to build up your self-esteem or your self-respect, then you've got a shaky foundation. It's like having a shaky foundation to a house. Now, I know I've got one builder on here, so that he'll understand totally what I'm talking about. But anyway, if you've got a negative self-image and a lot of negative self-talk going on, that means that you haven't really got a lot of confidence and esteem. You're doubting yourself a lot, so you're not kind of quite confident or comfortable where you are. And sometimes having that harsh inner voice is can make us prey, because we're not feeling sure in ourselves, we're feeling a bit insecure. That can make us prey to people who are energy vampires and will, you know, take from us, will take a lot from us, will bring us in, almost groom us, but then take a lot from us. So, you know, having that time to self-reflect, making sure that you're adjusting your inner voice to be a positive, healthy inner voice is really, really important as well. If you find yourself asking questions such as, why does this keep happening to me? Why is this person doing this to me? Those are all kind of questions that put you in that victim mentality. And that victim mentality, we've all been there, don't get me wrong. I've been there myself. And sometimes we all can slip into that and go, well, you know, why is this happening to me? Why is this person doing this to me? But if it's happening a lot, then it suggests that actually you're staying stuck where you are. You're not really being what I call the pilot in your own life. You're not in the driving seat. You're being the passenger. And it's possible that this energy vampire who makes you feel bored, frustrated and irritated is just taking you along for a ride because you haven't got that sense of self, that you're not really in charge of your own time, your actions, what you're doing. So that can be, you know, something really, really important to consider. If you consistently feel that this person is having a negative impact on your life, that's another thing to look at in terms of, you know, why am I putting up with this person in my life? Just because somebody's in our life now doesn't mean they have to stay here. And it may mean that you just need a break from that person, or it may mean that actually that person's not a healthy influence in our lives. I'm sure, you know, I've been there myself, been in relationships that weren't healthy, but I didn't know what I know now. So it's worth asking, you know, well, exactly why have I got this person in my life? What are they adding to my life? And instead of consistently sort of asking, why is this happening to me? You know, why is this person always doing this to me? Perhaps put yourself in the driving seat more and think about, well, hang on a minute. Why have I got this person in my life? So, for example, at work, there's a difference between working with someone who's just a bit annoying and a bit of a nuisance. If you've got the right boundaries and then enough self-respect, you can manage that. There's a difference between that and the person that's always taking from you, for example, dumping work on you at the last minute. Someone that is nicking your ideas, you know, grooming you, making you feel good about yourself while stealing your ideas. Those kind of, and you find out and you feel a bit drained by it. So, and a bit drained and a bit fed up by it. So there's certainly a difference between people that are just a bit annoying and people that are taking from you on a regular basis. And unfortunately, if it's continuing to happen, then you're allowing it to happen. So once you start noticing it, really think about, okay, hang on a minute. You know, if you're in a toxic work environment, what's the price you're paying for that? If you're surrounded by these sort of vampires and people that take from you, what is the price that you're paying for that? And is it really worth it? Is it worth your health, your happiness, your own self-esteem to keep putting up with this? Now, it might be if it's a work situation, there are things you can do to address that. And I did a video earlier in the week all about managing your own boundaries and how to confront people in a healthy way. There are things that you can do about it, but quite frankly, I coach enough people that are in toxic work environments to suggest that it's not worth your own health and happiness to stay there. If you've tried to make things better, then perhaps move on. Same with relationships. You know, I'm sure we've all been there in terms of there are family members that perhaps take a lot from us. It's different if you've got people that are dependent on you and unwell. I'm not including people into that category of what I'm calling energy vampires, but people that just think the world revolves around them. They will just take and take from you. So sometimes it's about, how can I manage my time around that person? What can I do to put myself back in the driving seat? And again, with romantic relationships, it might be the same, that actually, you know, you've been drawn in by somebody who's very charming, very intelligent, seems to offer a lot, but once you've been in that relationship for a while, you realise actually that person is really all about them. They are at the centre of their own world, and you can sit and try and talk to them until the cows come home. But unfortunately, if they are that kind of person where they lack empathy and the ability to somebody else's point of view, I'm afraid you're dating a bit of an energy vampire. But honestly, the clear signs are, you know, it's not like the House of Horror films where you get 2 bite marks on the neck. What it is, what the signs that you do get is how you feel after being around somebody. If it's consistently draining, if it's consistently demotivating, if it's consistently dragging you down and making you feel irritated, that is a clear sign that your boundaries, and again I refer to the video on my Sarah J Coaching Facebook page I did earlier in the week. I really, you know, would say that that's really critical to draw those boundaries. Doesn't have to be confrontational, it can be polite, it can be firm, but it can still be assertive. And if that person fails to listen, then you've got a choice about, well, do you know what? Do I stay in this job? Do I stay with this person? Do I include this person in my life? I don't know about you, but I've certainly had circumstances in my life where, you know, I've chosen to move away from friendships and relationships because the burden of it's just become so big. So just to recap about what I've covered today, I've talked about energy vampires, and I've mentioned that actually they're quite difficult to spot because they don't swoop in after midnight with a cape and a pair of fangs. They are in and amongst us in society and work, and I'm sure some of you may have come across them as well in your personal and professional lives. So difficult to spot. Some of the signs are charming, intelligent, very prone to flattering you. You feel like, wow, this is great, I'm getting all this attention and flattery, and they think I'm amazing. So those are some of the signs that somebody might try to big you up at some point and groom you to take something from you later on. So that's how sometimes you can spot the sign of a vampire, an energy vampire, but over time you'll start to feel drained, concerned, irritated, stressed, a bit mistrustful of them, thinking about, well, why are they doing this? Why? So those are signs that you're starting to recognise this energy vampire. And this is actually, although I'm sort of making a few jokes about House of Horror films, this is quite serious because people can draw you into doing things that are really against your values and your moral compass, like even sort of breaking the law. You know, you can get, you know, so it can sound amusing to use the term energy vampires, but at the end of the day, as I mentioned, they only think about themselves, that their world is their centre. They lack empathy and understanding. They can be so charming that you get drawn in, and it's not until you start feeling irritated and put upon that you realise, hang on a minute, I am dealing with someone who's making me feel less than. And again, it can be, you know, quite serious in terms of, you know, even, you know, people can even break the law because they've been drawn in by people. So what's important for you is to recognise it, get back in the driving seat. Just because somebody's in your life doesn't mean you have to stay in your life. Think about why you have this personal situation in your life. Is this a recurrence of something that's happened before? Is it a case of, do you know what, I can minimise that person? Or is it a case of, do you know what, if I have to stay here in this job, I've got to put up with more than one energy vampire or this particular energy vampire, then I'd suggest it might be time to look at your career. Think about why you've got that person in your life. Have self-reflection time, and if you want to, write things down. I'm a great believer in writing things down to get them out of our head and onto paper so we can look at them objectively. Think about, you know, find a time, whether that's walking the dog, being in the gym, going fishing, playing football, having quiet time on the sofa, whatever that is. Find that downtime and reflect about, hang on a minute, what is it about me that's attracted this situation? Or what is this situation revealing about myself that I need to work on? Don't blame yourself, by the way, because as I mentioned, the vampires are very, very charming and difficult to spot. Listen to your own inner voice. Listen to your inner voice. Are you being your own critical parent? Are you being a very harsh critic on yourself? Are you nagging yourself? If you've got somebody saying, oh, you're not good enough, you don't do this, you don't do that, you're not this, you're not that, because that kind of low level of sort of emotional stability and security can sometimes make you prey to other people's flattery. So make sure you're trying to find out ways of rebalancing that inner voice, so you're like, do you know what, I'm a good person, I'm fine. And you don't need to get that kind of external validation to that level. so it may stop you attracting these kind of situations. But don't beat yourself up if you've ever been in that situation. I know I have, and it's difficult to spot. And remember, sort of some of those questions about, if you find yourself asking, why is this person always doing this? Why does this keep happening to me? Why does my life kind of suck a bit? If you're asking those questions that are putting you, in that victim mindset of like, oh, why is this happening to me? And you're asking those questions a lot, it is time to get back in the driving seat, and it is time to think about, okay, right, what do I need to change in my life? There's another good technique as well. If you're finding that you're overwhelmed by certain people in your life, and as I say, there could be these energy vampires that suck the life out of you, they groom you in, they reel you in, only to then sort of take from you, take more and more from you. There's a really handy exercise. If you draw a circle and draw yourself as a stick man or a stick woman in the middle, draw another circle and think about the people closest to you, the people that you love and care about, and put those in your inner circle. And, usually that's a very, very small, close group of people. Then draw the next circle about people that are important to you, but maybe, they're not going to be as close to you, not such a big part of your life. And then keep, do another couple of circles about people that you just know, or people you might see when you're doing a hobby now and again. But really look at those people and where they fit into your life, because it really is your choice. Sometimes with family, yes, we have situations that are difficult to deal with, and sometimes that that's about thinking, how do I spend my time with that family? How do I stop myself getting annoyed? How do I make sure I'm not being taken advantage of? But do that exercise with the circles of paper and figure out who's really important to your life, who's adding to your life, and of course, whose life you're adding to without losing yourself in the process. So I hope you've enjoyed this video about energy vampires. Remember, difficult to spot, quite charming, will flatter you, groom you, draw you in, and you realise that's happening when you're starting to get irritated and frustrated and you start to mistrust them. Do the exercise with the circles about who's important to your life, who is in your inner circle. Don't be scared to let go of situations or relationships that aren't serving you. If it's making you really unhappy, stressed, even depressed, that's a situation you definitely want to move away from. That's becoming more than an annoyance. It's becoming something that's quite unhealthy. Find ways of self-reflecting, your healthy time, whether that's yoga, used to be scuba diving for me, walking the dog, whatever it is, to analyse and think about, what's going on in your life, why those people are in your life. If you find yourself asking you questions, why is it happening to me? Why does this person keep doing that? That's a clear sign you've got somebody in your life who perhaps isn't the healthiest influence. And really start to become your own pilot in your life. And I suppose if we're talking about vampires, it might not be a bad idea to have a bit of garlic and, who knows, a bit of holy water hanging around. But no, that's just me being flippant. These, it's quite a serious matter, because I'm sure we've all been there. We've had people who have drained us, but there is a way out of it, and there is a way to recalibrate relationships and set boundaries of people to ensure you're not being taken advantage of and that you're not going down a path you might regret. So if any of this resonates with you, then get in touch with me, send me a direct message. If you'd like to receive my very short, I do a weekly e-blast, which is a very short 2-3 minute read on tips. I've got a blog on my website, so if you want any of those things, then just sign up via my website, drop me a direct message. But I hope you've enjoyed this video today on energy vampires, and you've learnt a bit about your own self-care, your own self-esteem, about building that up to make sure that you can minimise their impact on your life. All right, have a great day.